Let's say that you're tasked with persuading a miserable executive. Maybe you want to ask a favor, maybe it's part of an initiative, but at the end of the day, these people are just insufferable. You won't expect them to help, you won't expect them to collaborate with anything, and you think, can I persuade this person? The answer is yes. So when dealing with this type of executive who is very hostile, they may be very cynical, and you just don't expect them to collaborate at the end of the day, well, let's start by saying that this is going to be hard, okay? I'm not going to trick you and tell you that it's going to be easy. However, it's not impossible, okay? There are some techniques that we can use to really optimize communication for this specific type of person. And what I want to share with you today are 4 tips in specific. Before we proceed, by the way, if you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe to get immediate notifications of similar situations. So if you want to know more negotiation techniques or communication techniques like this one, that's the best way to immediately get access to it. Anyway, let's proceed to the 4 tips themselves. So the first tip out of these 4, as simple as it may seem, is understanding. Showing understanding with these people, or empathy. Because here's the thing, nobody likes to be miserable just because. There's usually a reason for it. And even if you argue that it's not reason enough for them to be miserable, which is fair enough, there's still a reason underneath. And if you can dialogue with them and you can really understand why they're in this state, then you can possibly help them, or at least you can show empathy. The goal here is to get the person to drop their guard, because someone who is miserable is usually very cynical. They don't believe anything, they have an answer to everything, they're always raising objections. And what you want to do is you want to erode that shield and you want to get to their core. And the best way to do it is to really show understanding. And as crazy as it seems, guessing is a great way to do this. That is, you try and guess why they're in this state. So for example, say something like, hey, you seem a little bit stressed. Does it have anything to do with this specific project getting denied? Or something like that. So you want to get to the core of why they're feeling this way. And the key here is that you're not always going to get it right. That's for sure, okay? Don't trick yourself. But even if you get it wrong, just showing that intention, right? Showing that you're trying to understand them makes them more open to dialoguing with you. In other words, you want to get them to drop the shield. And either you get the reason right and you can actually help them, or at least you can contribute to them being in a better state, or you get it wrong, but they still appreciate you because you're trying. So understanding is the first key, trying to get them to drop their guard. The second technique is to get them to talk about their future and their goals. And the reason for this is the following. There is usually a set of emotions or a set of emotional states that come with being miserable or cynical, which is the person usually feels stagnated, or they feel hopeless, or they just feel like things aren't worth it. So they don't even think about their future. But that's precisely where the opportunity lies. If you can get them to focus on their future and on the possible positive things that will come afterwards, they'll come out of that stagnation, or they will focus less on it. A great way to think about this is, if the present is negative, then the future may be positive. So by focusing on the future, you get them to snap out of this state, if you will. It's exactly the same thing that you would do when you have a friend that's in need. Instead of letting them just simmer in all of that negativity, you say, hey, let's focus on the future. What do you want to do? Where would you like to be 5 years from now? What would you like to do in terms of your next promotion, in terms of your next initiative? And this is a beautiful technique because none of these things in the future actually need to happen. You just want to get them to focus on them. Because when somebody's talking about the future and about the possibilities, everybody becomes in a good mood. Just picture yourself thinking about a possible vacation in the future or a trip. Even if it doesn't happen, you just put yourself in a very positive state just thinking about it. And that's exactly the same effect that we're trying to achieve here. In other words, when their present is negative, try to get them to talk about a future positive. The third tip is very simple but very effective. You want to connect what you're pitching or what you need from them to their need. In other words, you find an excuse for this pitch of yours, whether it's a favor or asking for support for an initiative or whatever it is, to be connected with a benefit to them in the future. This is connected to what I call surgical pitching or surgical selling, which is you want to know the needs of the person in specific, and you want to recommend something that is laser targeted to what they need. Because if it's generic, they're not going to appreciate it. They're thinking, oh, this person is just ramming this value proposition down my throat. However, if you get to know about their needs first, Then you recommend something and it sounds targeted. And here's the beautiful thing, even if it isn't targeted, it's going to seem targeted just because you asked about all of that information. Think of a doctor in a consultation. If they prescribe some medicine immediately as you enter the door, you're going to think, well, this isn't very targeted. This isn't for me. They're just trying to push this down my throat. But if they ask questions for 40 minutes and then they recommend something, it's going to seem like it's tailored for you. And even if they're prescribing something generic, it's still going to seem specific, just because they went through the effort of knowing about everything that you need. The same thing applies here. So you may have to do a little bit of guesswork to know what they truly want. Do they want more power? Do they want a higher salary? Do they want a different position? Do they want to be involved in something? But then you connect your pitch to that. For example, if they're seeking higher compensation or if they want a specific bonus, then you can say, hey, I really want support for this initiative, but if you support it, it's going to get recognition and you are going to get recognition, and that bonus that you wish is going to become a reality. Now, obviously, it's not that simple, but the more that you can connect what you're pitching to their specific needs, the higher the chances that they're going to collaborate. And last but not least, you want them to give their opinion on something. By this, I mean the following. There's a persuasion principle that defends that if you tell someone what to do, they're not going to like it. But if you ask them what they want to do, even if they come to the same answer, they're more likely to do it because they were the ones that came up with the idea. So especially with miserable people, and especially if they have a dominant personality type, it's very important to ask for their opinion. Don't tell them, I need this type of support. Ask them, what type of support can you provide? Or if it's not support, whatever else it is, a sale, a contract, a favor, whatever. First, you ask them, what are they willing to do? And then, even if it's not a match with what you need, you start from there and you get them to what you actually need. And the difference may seem subtle, but it's actually massive. Someone who is willing to do something out of their own initiative is much more likely to follow up with something than someone who was forced to do something because somebody else asked or because somebody else forced them to actually do it. So if you get them to state, or if you get them to give their opinion on what they will do, they're much more likely to actually help you. So these are 4 simple but effective techniques to really deal with someone who is in a miserable state of mind. First of all, you want to show understanding. You want them to drop their guard and not have an excuse to keep putting the shield up, okay? You want to speak with them as a human. So number 1, show understanding of their situation. You want an excuse for them to drop their guard so that you can speak on a human-to-human level. Number 2, talk about the future and about the potential. Remember, if their present is negative, maybe their future is positive. So just get them talking about those possibilities and immediately they're going to be in a better state. Technique number 3 is to connect what you're pitching with what they need. Because the more that you can connect what you're actually selling with them getting a benefit, the more that they're likely to actually do it. And last but not least, ask for their opinion. Somebody is much more likely to do something if it's out of their own initiative rather than being told what to do. So even if you have to work up and get to the same solution, first ask them, what are they willing to do? What would they like to do? And then you work from there. With these 4 tips, I can't assure you that you're going to convince every miserable executive that you come across, but your chances are going to be a lot higher, that's for sure. So don't forget to browse the channel if you want more negotiation and communication techniques, whether for executives or in other contexts, and don't forget to like and subscribe if the content of the video was useful for you. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.